You might be joining us live today on June 17th, or you might be catching the replay. Either way, I'm super glad that you've decided to join in this evening. I've got a couple of housekeeping things to go over before we get into the depth of the presentation. So if you haven't ever joined a Facebook Live before, I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things for me. If you can hear and see me, can you please send me some likes? Give me a hello, send a wave, put a comment in the comments section so that I have some idea that someone out there can hear and see me so that I'm not talking to myself this evening. We want to make sure that the technology is working properly as well so that you get the best presentation possible. And if you can leave a comment with where you are tuning in from, because somebody might be tuning in from elsewhere in Canada. Well, we're here in Halifax. The show is public and free, so people can join in from all over the world, technically, but I suspect most would be joining in from Canada. So if you can take a second and do that, send a like, a wave, a hello, anything in the comments, and let us know where you're tuning in from. That would be a great start. So the show is public. So if you have friends or family who you think might be interested in our topic tonight, which is the Northwest Passage and circumnavigating Newfoundland, please take a second and hit the share button, and you can invite your friends and family to join on Facebook as well. If you're here, you know that there's nothing to download. You basically can just see me talking right now. I'm all by myself, but I won't be for long. So please do please do share. Sorry, I started seeing comments. Hi, Karen. Hi, Mom. And I got distracted. So next, throughout the show, you can also ask questions. So we would really like it if you'd use the comments and put in any questions you have throughout the show, and we'll try and answer them live. One thing to keep in mind is there is about a 10-second delay between the broadcast studio, my little office here, and what you're seeing. So sometimes the questions come up later than, they're not instant. So when you're putting your questions in, instead of asking something like, where is that? Can you put in, where was that photo with the small town and colorful houses and the dog? So that if we get the question later, we'll know how to answer that question. Because if it just says, where is that? And we get it 10 minutes or at the end of the broadcast, we won't be able to answer where that is. So if you can just keep that in mind, that would be great. With that, thanks again, everyone, for joining in. And I'm super excited that this is my first show of the season. So about 2 years ago, I started the Love the Way You Travel show with the idea to bring my connections and contacts from the travel industry to my clients. One of the benefits of working with a travel professional is that we've taken time to build relationships with guides, with destination experts all around the world, and we continue to grow those relationships with our travel partners to make sure that you get the best experience possible when you're traveling. It's a big part of how we've become so knowledgeable about different styles of travel and destinations, and it's how we take care of our clients when something goes wrong in destination. Of course, we always hope that doesn't happen, but as we all know, coming through a pandemic, that a lot of people were stuck abroad. A lot of people did have to make changes to their plans and itineraries. And part of what makes us really valuable as a profession is that we have these relationships that we've built. So we aren't talking to Google and Siri back behind the scenes to solve your problems. We're reaching out to tried, tested, and true partners. And I think that's something that's really important for people to know. So the Love the Way You Travel show brings you the opportunity to learn from experts in various tourism fields and to be inspired to travel to new destinations. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sherry, and my company is Sherry Tucker Luxury Travel and Adventures. If you know me, give me a like or a heart. Say hello in the comments so that I know that you're listening. I also have 2 team members joining me this evening behind the scenes as well. You won't see them on screen, but they are in the comments section. So if you know Marissa Dimmick, TPI, or Stephanie Boyne of Boyne Around the World, feel free to say hi to them in the comments as well. They're listening and monitoring for comments, so they'll respond to you if they know you as well. So again, they also say thank you for joining in, and we're excited to be able to present to you this evening. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our guest this evening. I'm just going to bring him online. Give me just a second to get everything set up here. There, MJ, I just want to make sure you can hear and see us.
Sure can.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to do a quick introduction here. We've got lots of people tuning in and saying hello. So hi, Kim and Judy. I see you guys there too. And Stephanie and Marissa are online as well. So we've got a whole bunch of people joining in. I see lots of comments coming in. So tonight I'm excited to introduce you to MJ Swan from Adventure Canada. So MJ and I met just a few weeks before COVID-19 hit. We were here in Halifax, and he was doing a presentation with a couple of other suppliers. And I think we shared some cold fish and chips. Not shared, but I had my fish and chips and he had his fish and chips that day. And poor MJ didn't get to eat his while they were hot, right?
They were still good. They were still good.
So that day, MJ talked about the Northwest Passage expedition trip that he's going to talk about this evening as well. And I was immediately interested. Now, I'm sure MJ is going to share during his presentation, but they are a Canadian-owned family business. They're super proud of their sustainable tourism efforts, including supporting many Indigenous communities throughout the Canadian Arctic regions. And that's one of the things that really stuck with me as well, is their support of the locals on these routes that they do. I just want to take a second to remind you as well that you can ask questions throughout. So make sure that they are specific in case we're a bit delayed getting to them. But we will try and answer questions during the presentation if we can. But if not, we'll answer them at the end as well. And MJ's got a great presentation set up. So sit back, enjoy, and I'm going to turn it over to him. And there we go.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Absolutely honored to be the first episode of your returning travel show. Thank you so much for inviting me. Before I get started, I just want to emphasize what Sherry was mentioning at the beginning there, how important it is to have somebody on your side when making and arranging travel plans. Not only just when things go wrong, which sometimes they do when you're traveling abroad. It's great to have somebody in your corner that's going to have your back and make sure you're kept safe and make arrangements for you when necessary, but also to hand select the right product for you. Me with Adventure Canada as a tour operator, it's extremely important for us to work alongside travel professionals like Sherry, who take the time to get to know their clients, who understand what their needs are and ultimately what their goals are when they're selecting a journey. And they will hand select the right tour operator to pair you with. And that can go a very long way, especially when you invest so much money and so much time in big trips. You don't want it to go to waste. So a travel professional is always strongly suggested, and you're in one of the best hands when you're working with Sherry and her colleagues. So as I mentioned, very excited to connect with everybody today. What I'm going to do is give an introduction to Adventure Canada and what we represent as a tour operator. Also, I want to take a look at our travel style and learn about expedition cruising and what makes it so wonderful. Well, at least why I think it's so wonderful. And then also we're going to take a deep dive on two of our favorite destinations, which will be the Northwest Passage and Newfoundland. So I'm the Director of Business Development with Adventure Canada, but I am also an expedition leader. I spend quite a bit of time out in the field leading tours all over the world. So a lot of my stories today will be from firsthand experiences. The reason why I'm so fortunate that I got to travel to some of these amazing destinations is because of the family business that Sherry mentioned previously. Here's a photo of the family. That's Matthew Sr. there in the center with his Tourism Industry Association of Canada Lifetime Achievement Award. It was a very proud day for the family, and pictured along with my two sisters. So in the white dress on the left, that is Cedar Swan. She's now our CEO. And then to the right of Matthew and to the left of me is Alana who is our VP of product now. So it's very much a family business, and I'm extremely proud to work alongside my family and my coworkers every day, and I wouldn't change it for the world, even in the most challenging times like we might be going through right now in the COVID environment. Also, Sherry mentioned how important it is to be giving back. Sustainability is an integral part to Adventure Canada's mission and vision, but also regenerative tourism, going over and above. How can we not only be minimizing our impact, but how can we be benefiting the regions that we're traveling to? And this is one of the reasons why I'm also so proud to work at the family company. So right now, it's more important than ever. We need to focus on how we can make a positive impact through regenerative tourism and sustainability planning. Now, don't break your neck trying to read this graphic. I know that it's impossible for you to actually read it, but what I want you to know is that a portion of each traveler's tour cost that travels with Adventure Canada is contributing to our sustainability efforts. And what we've done to minimize our environmental footprint of tourism is we're aligning with the United Nations 2030 goals of regenerative tourism. So we align ourselves with suppliers that support our vision, reducing single-use plastics, reducing CO2 emissions, and promoting recycle and reuse programs. Okay, so why do we go? We embark on these journeys because we believe in the transformative power of nature and that we can connect people to each other and to the land through innovative travel experiences. And that will be both on and off of our ships. We engage, we entertain, and we educate by connecting people to each other and to the land. And we cultivate connection and community and celebrate culture. Culture is extremely important no matter what region it is we're traveling to. So we have a passion for exploration with the ultimate goal of inspiring folks to make a positive impact on the beautiful planet that we call home. Now, we travel all over the world. We go through Europe, we go through Central and South America, we go all the way down to Antarctica. No matter where it is we go, we like to stay away from the big city lights. I love this image here. You can see how southern Canada and the States is just lit up. And look at Europe over there off on the right of the screen. It's just amazing, these big cities. And I like cities, but that's not where we run our tours. We go off of the beaten path, trying to connect with small rural communities and get out and connect with nature. So over the years, we've discovered our preferred method is expedition cruising. Now, expedition cruising isn't like your typical large ship or luxury cruise. We deliver a program that provides travelers with an authentic and immersive experience in the destinations we are visiting. Flexibility is a key in expedition travel, and we'll adjust our program to make sure we're reaching all of our goals and objectives, whether it be culture, natural history, or wildlife. And sometimes that means we end up going to places that we weren't expecting to go. But the beauty of being on a small expedition ship is you have the flexibility to change your plans as they come. You can avoid maybe a bad weather system that's coming through, or you can divert your energy and go to where there might be a polar bear sighting and spend more time there. So there's definitely benefits on being on the smaller ship. So for those of you that are not familiar with expedition cruising, I'll just do a quick introduction. There's three main types of excursions that are included in the tour cost. One, probably my favorite, is the Zodiac cruise. This is when we're off in small rubber boats and enjoying the natural wonders. They're extremely safe, extremely reliable. And here's a photograph with our typical demographic. Our main client is between the ages of 55 and 75. They're relatively active, but they're looking for a learning experience. Our programs are extremely educational. So these boats, as long as you can get in and out of a pickup truck, you're going to be fine getting in and out of these Zodiacs. The second type of excursion is a community visit. So here we'll conduct tours with local guides. It's always important for us to be using local guides no matter what area we're visiting in. So within the communities, we'll have the opportunity to learn about local traditions, art, food, clothing, find ways for those meaningful cultural exchanges, learning about the local way of life. For days that offer the opportunities to hike, we'll conduct a variety of different options to make sure that everybody has something that is a good fit for them. We're going to have hikes that are 10 kilometers long for those that are extremely active and need to burn off the calories of eating too many desserts back on the ship. We're going to have options that are, intermediate, maybe just 4 to 6 kilometers with return. And then we're going to have extremely easy, leisurely walks, we call them, where it's going to be 1 kilometer or less. You don't have to go very far. And no matter what it is, you're going to get a lot of interpretations. They're all led hikes. So you'll get scientists that will go out and give you interpretation on botany or geology or ornithology, all of the good stuff that we can find out in the natural history world. So it's important for us to accommodate these different mobility levels and the interests on each day so that everybody is ensured that they're happy and healthy. We don't want to be pushing people too hard by trying to keep up with those very fast folks, and we don't want to be slowing others down. So we try to create an environment that's inclusive for all. So a key component to these expeditions is our staff. These specialists will cover a wide variety of different topics: history, marine biology, archaeology, botany. We usually have a photographer on board, geologist. And we have a mandate that for every 7 passengers or every 7 travelers, we'll have at least 1 staff. And that allows us to get into a small group environment. And that's what we're trying to create, is an intimate environment where you're able to engage and interact with the staff. You can direct the conversations in the way that you want it to flow. So that way you really do get the most out of the program. So our resource staff are not just providing lectures on board, but they're also out in the field on hikes, interpreting sites, driving the zodiacs, and they'll lead hands-on workshops, dine with you, they'll dance with you, and ultimately befriend you. So it really does feel like a community on board. A lot of our staff, to be honest, they're on paid vacations. They're doing this because they're so passionate and enthusiastic about the places that we travel and their lifelong studies. They want to share what they've been able to find. So, it doesn't feel like there's a separation where there's the staff team and then there's the travelers. It really does feel like a family atmosphere, like we are a community on board these trips. So, as I said, much of it does take place on land, but there is a very thorough series of lectures and presentations on board covering the sciences, but equally important is the culture, and then also the arts as well. We do things like writing workshops, beading workshops. You might learn how to throat sing, even a chance to watch maybe an Inuit carver do his work. So we like to stimulate the creative side of the brain as well. One very popular part of our program is the Nikon lending program. So we put on a number of different Nikon cameras, and you don't have to be very good at using them, but you can borrow them, and our professional photographer will teach you how to use them. It's a free of charge program. You can borrow the cameras for a couple of days at a time, get instruction on how to use them, and then download them to a USB stick, and you can take them home with you. So that's a very popular program. And then the last thing I'll introduce, it's also included in our trips, is the expedition jacket. We give you some gear. So to these places, you're going to want to have a waterproof and windproof jacket. With your tour cost, you'll get provided an expedition jacket. You'll still want to dress warm underneath with your fleeces and your thermal layers, but this is a waterproof and windproof jacket. Also, we'll provide you with rubber boots in case you need to go off exploring the landscape and it might be a bit wet. So we provide you with rubber boots as well. For those looking for something a little more adventurous, we have kayaking programs, so you can rent some equipment. You can rent kayaks. You can also rent mountain bikes as well, for those of you that are looking to go the extra mile and burn even more calories. So as I mentioned, our home for these expeditions is a small cruise vessel. It's 198 passengers, and it's called the Ocean Endeavor. Now, this ship was purpose-built for ice navigation. So it is very, very strong, and it can maneuver in and around icebergs no problem. Navigating through sea pans of ice like this is not a problem at all for the Ocean Endeavor. One benefit of being an ice-class ship is it's very bottom-heavy. So the extra heavy steel at the bottom makes it sit low in the water. And in the rare case that we do encounter rough weather, the ship is very stable because it's got a heavy bottom. It doesn't move around much in the waves. So It's a great ship for those of you that might be concerned about motion sickness. It also does have state-of-the-art stabilizers and things that we can put out in the rare case that we do encounter some rough weather. I'm not going to go into all of the cabins and that kind of stuff. I want to leave that for the experts, Sherry and her team. You just connect with your travel advisor. They'll be able to set you up with the right trip and get you in the right cabin, the right place on the ship, all of that good stuff. So just connect with Sherry, and she'll be able to help you out. Okay, let's get to the good stuff now. So we're going to start in the north and then work our way down south to Newfoundland. So we have 2 Northwest Passage itineraries, and they are both considered Canadian signature experiences. One starts in August and the other in September. So they do happen in different seasons in the Arctic. One goes from east to west and one from west to east. So they run back to back. You can do both if you're looking to get a full 34-day experience in the Arctic. So these itineraries are best-selling. We've been doing them for over a decade now, and they sell out for us every year. And they're already getting sold close to sold out for 2021. So I encourage you, if you're interested, to start looking at options sooner rather than later. These expeditions are a once-in-a-lifetime journey through the historic Northwest Passage, and it's been on news recently. I'm sure you've heard of the investment that the Canadian federal government made to find the sunken ships of the Erebus and the Terror, which were from the Sir John Franklin expeditions. We travel right over that region, and we learn a lot about those explorations from the Europeans that were trying to find a safe passage. So one misconception I would like to get out of the way right off the bat is that the Arctic is a cold and barren landscape. Not true. In the summer months that we are traveling there, we're looking at temperatures hovering around 15 degrees Celsius. So it's actually quite comfortable. You can see here outside in a fleece jacket, feeling quite comfortable, quite happy. So it's not actually that cold. You do want to bring some warm clothes in and around the icebergs. It does get chilly, but it's not like you have to be bundled up in a parka the entire time. So one of my favorite things is the iceberg. I love this photo here with the icebergs in the background. One of the hardest things to do is put in perspective how massive these icebergs are. So that's a picture of our ship, the Ocean Endeavor. It's a small cruise vessel, but it's still 137 meters long. So just think of how big that iceberg is that's floating in the background. The hardest part to believe is that they're actually 8 or 9 times larger underwater than you see above the water. So imagine how deep this iceberg is floating underneath the water surface. So it is hard to put in perspective, and really, to tell you the truth, until you get up there, you won't really understand how big these pieces of ice are. One great thing about being on a small expedition ship that's a nice class, you can navigate in and around the sea ice and around the icebergs and still feel safe and comfortable. On our small ship, you can get right out to the bow, as you see pictured here, and you can actually look over the edge of the bow and watch as the ship pushes around these massive ice cubes.
Is it loud when you do that? Is cutting through loud?
Yeah, it's actually, to be honest, it's a bit scary at first because you hear scraping of ice along the edge of the steel, and so it's not like a nails on chalkboard, but it definitely has a certain cringeworthy noise or pitch to it. But then you kind of get used to it and you settle in, and when we do hit considerable chunks, you actually feel a little bit of a shake as well. But these ships are extremely thick and sturdy, and we're not concerned about any sort of damage. So it takes a while to get used to, but it's a pretty cool experience. The great thing about the ice is it attracts the wildlife. So when ice breaks up, it releases phytoplanktons out into the water, which attracts small fish like krill, which attracts seals, which attracts the bigger marine mammals. So it's kind of like the circle of life. When you have good chunks of ice that are breaking up, you typically find a lot of wildlife around them. And most of what we call the Arctic Big Five can be found in and around the sea ice. So Nunavut in the Canadian Arctic has some of the largest populations of the Arctic Big Five. And going on the Northwest Passage, we would hope that you would get to see all 5 of these species, which I'll introduce to you now. Of course, the most iconic and most popular, and everybody wants to see, is the cute and cuddly polar bear, which is actually a very powerful and dangerous animal. As you would suspect, it is a bear. So you got to be careful. But we do see quite a few polar bears out on the sea ice. The majority of the time, we do see them from the larger vessel, from the Ocean Endeavor, and we spot them when they're out on the sea ice in their hunting habitat. They're looking for seals. They hunt for seals out on the sea ice. So this is where we typically see them. You're going to want to have binoculars. It's not like a tundra buggy experience where the bear comes right up to the tundra buggy. You know, we're talking anywhere from 30, 50 meters away from the ship. We still get relatively close, but you're going to want to have binoculars and a camera with you. Every once in a while, we do catch a glimpse of them from the zodiacs when they're out on land. But most importantly, we're visitors here. We're not here to disrupt the wildlife. And if we feel that the bears are, so you can see here how they look like they're scurrying up the cliffside there, we would back off in that scenario to make sure that we're not aggravating the bears and disrupting their home habitat.
You also don't want to make them angry.
No, we stay considerable distance away because of the threat of them. So wherever we're out on the land, we send out a team of bear monitors. They're trained for scouting areas and deterring bears. We never want to hurt a bear, but we do have tactics to deter them if they are approaching us. And so they'll clear the entire landscape before we even head ashore. So we have trained professionals that are there to take care of that for us. Okay, another one of the big 5, walrus, or considered tooth walkers. These animals are quite large in size. They have tusks, and why the Inuit call them tooth walkers is they're very graceful underwater, but out of the water, they're not so graceful. They're quite large and a bit clumsy. So what they do is they jump out of the water and they jam their tusks onto the sea ice, and then they use their large flippers, and then they slowly advance with their tusks to pull themselves out of the water, and that's how they got the name tooth walkers. You usually see them in herds. We call them herds, and when you usually spot one, you'll spot a couple. It's interesting. You usually can smell a walrus before you can see a walrus. They're very pungent. Another one, so a land mammal part of the Arctic Big Five is the muskox, or the bearded one. Love to see muskox out on the land. Again, they hang out in large herds. We usually see them up on the hillsides, on the slopes. They like to graze with the Arctic tundra. This photo was captured just with my iPhone, believe it or not, from one of the zodiacs. So you can get pretty good sightings of the muskox out on the land. The most difficult to spot of the Arctic Big Five is the narwhal, the unicorn of the sea. So they have this tusk that protrudes from their mouth there. The tusk is like tooth enamel, so it's very sensitive. They feel vibrations in the water, and so the vibrations from an expedition ship tend to scare them off. We usually spot them when we're in the smaller zodiacs, but even still, they're a bit skittish, and they are hunted. So that also makes them harder to spot because they don't hang around very long when they are in the area.
Are they hunted for their meat?
Yes. So part of Inuit tradition, they are still mainly a hunting culture, but every single part of any animal that is harvested would be used. So the meat would be used. They'll use the blubber, the fat can be burned down into oils that can be lit for lamps or used for cooking. The tusks can also be sold. So they use every part of every animal that they harvest. There are limitations on narwhal. There's certain seasons when they can be harvested and such. So it's quite heavily regulated in the Canadian Arctic.
And they're not endangered, are they? There's lots of them.
No, they're not endangered, but actually my next slide, I was going to talk about it a bit. The orca whales are now as ice continues to melt, more and more orcas are frequent these water channels, and they're hunting the slower moving whales like the narwhal in the last photo and the beluga whale here in this photo. And they're not used to these to these apex predators. Their environment is changing rapidly right now, and they're being closely monitored, but no, not endangered. So this one here, beluga whale, the white whale, it's super, super cute. These are social animals, and they're very vocal communicators, and they're quite easy to spot compared to the narwhal with this white-pink coloring that they have. And over the last several years, we've seen very large pods of beluga whales in the hundreds at a time. They're social. They like to hang out together. So outside of the Arctic Big Five, it's a very diverse ecosystem. There's actually quite a bit to hope for. In addition to the Big Five, numerous species of seals and whales, and we're seeing more and more orcas as the ice continues to melt. There'll be humpback whales. There's going to be possibly fin whales, minke whales. So quite a few different species of whales, and a large variety of seals also. For land mammals, it's a little harder to spot the land mammals, but we could possibly see Arctic fox or even an Arctic hare. Don't be fooled by that picture of the hare there. It's not like a bunny. They're actually quite large. They can grow up to 2.5 feet tall, so they're quite large. And extremely fast because they're quite tasty, and everybody wants to have a taste. So they're very powerful. They can have strong bursts of energy, and they can take off like that. Also a variety of seabirds. To me, they all kind of look the same, but I know that there's enthusiasts out there that love bird watching. Some of the special ones would be gyrfalcons and then also ivory gulls. There are quite a few different species that are hard to get anywhere else in the world up in the Canadian Arctic. And then also out on the tundra. So you think it's a barren landscape, it's not, but in summer months, it's in full bloom. You get these beautiful, gorgeous colors, purples and whites and pinks and yellows, and they just light up the tundra. And it's absolutely wonderful to see in the summer months. It's not like you're walking on snow-covered landscapes in the summer months. So outside of the natural history world, interesting cultural history. I start with the polar explorers sector, and there is interesting history to be found there. As there was a number of folks that were trying to, one, reach the North Pole, but two, also travel from east to west and create a link between Asia and Europe to trade goods and commodities. And with polar exploration, there's always lots of tales of hardship. We'll visit into a number of national historic sites like this one here pictured is Beechey Island, where there's a couple of graves from these explorers. So we'll learn all about that. But for me, the more significant and powerful cultural importance of the North is the Inuit culture. I absolutely love learning about this very rich and powerful culture. I find that the Canadian Inuit are extremely warm and extremely welcoming. They're not one of many words, but when they do speak, it is extremely meaningful. I find that they choose their words wisely, and they have incredible insight. Now, they've been able to survive up in this landscape. Not only survive, I think that's the wrong word. They've been able to thrive in this landscape for thousands of years and do it quite well. And I am in love with the North, and I see why they're so proud to call it home. You can see the beautiful, colorful houses, and they're just on these wonderful backdrops. You get these amazing landscapes up in the North. And similar to what you would think in Norway, it's same up in Greenland and the Canadian Arctic, where you get these glacial carved landscapes, and they're absolutely wonderful to look at. They're very deep, narrow fjords with beautiful mountainsides, and you can still see the glaciers and their tongues flowing down to the water's edge. So it's majestic. For those of you that are into photography, don't think just about wildlife, but also about the landscapes. You're going to have great landscape opportunities, and they're so unique. They're just look like they've been hand chiseled by architects that wanted to create a beautiful design. These icebergs and the lands and the mountains are just absolutely gorgeous. And a highlight for many is the Northern Lights. So the Aurora Borealis comes with a catch. If you want to see the Northern Borealis, you have to go towards the end of the season in September, and it gets colder. In the end of the season, on our last tours, you're looking at about 5 degrees Celsius, dropping down to zero or even below zero. So the weather gets colder, the botany starts to die off, and the birds fly south. You still get all the Arctic Big Five. They don't really care that it gets cold. They're used to that. But you do get the benefit of the Northern Lights and the Aurora Borealis. Now, I can't guarantee you'll see any of the displays on our trips, but I've done the September program 8 times, and I've seen it every time. You're right over the belt, and as long as we have clear skies, you should be seeing the Northern Lights. Okay. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to head south, and we're going to take a look at our Newfoundland circumnavigation trip. Before I do that, I'm going to take a little sip of my water.
You're allowed to do that. That's a lot of talking to go through.
Yeah, but when you're passionate, you don't even really notice it. Like I absolutely love the Arctic. It's a beautiful place. I encourage you, whether it's with Adventure Canada or not, I just want you to go there because it is absolutely wonderful.
Well, it's beautiful. And so many things that you said that are common misconceptions about the tundra being snow instead of flowers and it being cold. I mean, those are things that I thought too until I learned more about it. And I think a lot more people will be interested in going when they know there is so much color, when they know there's so much beauty. And I think for photography, absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And it's quite a bit different. So this is quite a contrast going down to Newfoundland now. So we're there in the fall. This trip is running in October in 2021. This one still has natural history components to it, but a more of an emphasis on culture and the beautiful Newfoundlanders, and less so on the wildlife side, especially being there in the fall. So I'll tell you all about that now. So the thing that stands out for me about this trip is the caliber of the resource staff. The Newfoundland expedition team members are second to none. They are naturally engaging, they're naturally storytellers, and they are naturally enthusiastic, and it just brings the programming to a whole nother level. And our team has bonded over that. We've been traveling around Newfoundland for over 25 years now, and our teams have bonded immensely, and this is a very tight-knit group. So Newfoundlanders are celebrated storytellers and inherently musical. It's like it's one or the other. When you're growing up in a house in Newfoundland, you either know how to tell a good tale, or you can sing a song, or you're playing an instrument, or you're pretending to do one of the three. So it's just a natural thing, and they tend to break out into the infamous kitchen parties all the time. So you're going to get a bit of stories and music on this trip for sure. It's also a Canadian signature experience. So Destination Canada, our national tourism board, also selected this as a signature experience, one that you must see. So this program offers the opportunity to see 3 UNESCO World Heritage Sites and 3 national parks, which is absolutely amazing. And you do it all in just 11 days. And you actually see the entire island. If you were to drive all the way around Newfoundland, which is also a great experience, you want to do that in 3 or 4 weeks. We're doing it in just 11 days. So it's a great way to get a taste of the entire island. And then you can pick the areas that you really love and explore them more afterwards. So I only want to highlight a couple of things on this itinerary, same as I did in the Arctic, but this is more culturally focused. The first UNESCO World Heritage Site is an archaeology site that was found by Ann Stinn and Helga Instead, who in the 1960s discovered the remains of a Norse village. So archaeologists determined the site as Norse origin because of the similarities with the sites in Greenland and Iceland around 1000 AD. So L'Anse aux Meadows represents the farthest known extent of European exploration before the voyages of Christopher Columbus almost 5,000 years ago. So it's notable. It's very notable. It has a connection with Leif Erikson, and it's also the only confirmed Norse site in North America. There's speculation of other sites, but haven't been confirmed yet. So it's pretty significant that this is the only confirmed village in North America. So today they do a great job. They have tons of information on the old village, and they actually have a recreated village as well. So you can spend some time living in a Norse village, sit around a campfire, hear Norse stories, do all of that beautiful stuff. So it's a significant site to spend some time at. Another UNESCO World Heritage Site pictured here, beautiful backdrop. This is one of the hikes outside of the town, is Red Bay. So it's population under 200 people, very small town. You can see it pictured in the background there. Home to Basque whaling station. So 1600s, Basque whalers were coming over, harvesting a lot of whales, unfortunately, to light the lamps of Europe. It's quite tragic to think about, but it happened, and it's a pretty important part of history. So there is a strong connection between the Basque whalers over in Spain. So not sure if everybody knows, but the Basque country over in Spain and France, a beautiful part of Europe, very strong connection to Newfoundland and Labrador as well. Pictured here in the Parks Interpretation Center is a small boat called the Chalupa. And these young men and what we would consider boys now would go out in these boats and harvest whales. They would harpoon them, wait for them to get tired, and then haul them back in these small chalupa boats. So it's pretty incredible to think about. It was a high risk, high reward. There was a lot of fatalities, but also you got paid well if you were willing to be a whaler at that time. Okay, let's move on to Gros Morne National Park. It's beautiful. So this is on the west coast of Newfoundland. Pretty famous national park, actually, especially if you're Canadian. I'm pretty sure you would have heard of Gros Morne National Park. We head out in hiking groups. You can explore the small town here of Woody Point, browse the general store, rent a bicycle, go for all of that stuff. But the significant site here is when we go to the tablelands. It's considered the Galapagos of geology. So here the Earth's mantle protrudes through the crust to form this tablelands. And through the result of a brilliant coming together of two continents, you will have this opportunity to see the Earth's mantle. Just think of that. It's pretty awesome. So we'll spend a lot of time with the parks guides and our geologists looking at this pretty spectacular wonder. And then we head to the south coast. So the south coast of Newfoundland, beautiful scenery. There's these very remote communities. This is Francois pictured here. We're sailing into this very small bay. Actually, I'll just advance to the next slide so you can see our small ship. Difficult. You got to have perfect wind conditions to get in here, and the captain has to have his nerves and a couple of cups of coffee in him to get in there. It's absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. So no roads, only these small walking paths. Under a population of 100, and there's no road access in or out. Only a ferry service to get to this small rural outport in the south coast of Newfoundland. People love this. This is a highlight for many, if not the favorite spot for 85% of the travelers that go on this trip. You go for Gros Morne and you go for the UNESCO, but when you call into these small rural outposts of Newfoundland and meet the people and connect with them, you come away with this just deep admiration for what it is and the lifestyle that they stand for. So you get a lot of time walking in and around the town, but also it's got some intermediate hikes outside of the town where you can go off exploring. And in the fall, you're going to get these beautiful fall colors, and it's just a wonderful time to be there. And it's a little bit colder at that time of year. We're looking at 10, 15 degrees Celsius, but it's still it's reasonable. It's not in the midsummer heat. So, Cherry, I went a little bit longer than you wanted me to. I was going to talk a little bit.
Okay.
I was going to talk about some of the benefits. Do you want me to just do this quickly, or do you want me to wrap up?
No, you can do it quickly, but just before you do, I'm just going to give a reminder to everybody who's listening that if you have any questions, please go ahead and stick them in the comments, and we'll ask MJ questions live so that he can answer them. I did ask a couple along the way, but yeah, stick them in there. I will see them. I'm monitoring them, and then if there are questions, we'll get to MJ to answer them. But yes, you've got solo travelers up there, and I know there are some people interested in solo travel. So I would hate to stop you with that screen up, because somebody would be mad at me out there, I'm sure. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so we don't have solo specific trips, but what we do is we offer a free single supplement. So we have the Ocean Endeavor has a beautiful setup where we have the ability to offer solo travelers their own private cabin without paying an extra charge. So you can have your own private accommodations and pay the same per person rate as if there was a couple booking into a cabin. So it's a great feature about this ship. And what it creates is we usually get anywhere from 30, 40 solo travelers on a trip. So it creates this great environment too, where there's other solo travelers that still want their own private personal space, as you should, especially with how our environment is changing. It's good to have your own private space, but it's a welcoming environment where you can feel comfortable as a solo traveler and know that there's going to be other folks that are exploring, wandering this beautiful planet by themselves, and they'll probably want to connect with you.
I
Um,
I
yeah,
also want to point out that although we look for solo travel options for people all the time, it's very, very rare in the cruise industry as a whole, whether it be river cruise or expedition or big like Caribbean cruises or Mediterranean. It's really hard to find solo rooms, and if you get a solo traveler, it's very rare that it's at the same price as a couple would pay. So that's absolutely fantastic. It's super to know that.
yeah, and we try to stay true. Like we want to be inclusive. We don't want to alienate anybody, and that's part of our company culture in the office and when we visit communities. And we want the same environment on our ship. So we think it's fair to have equal opportunity for those solo travelers. Yeah, it is a wonderful option, and fits right into our next slide as well. We are family friendly, so one be like if you're looking for an adults only program, then you might want to check in with us to see if there might be kids on the trip you're interested in. But also, we encourage multi-generational travel. We find that any young mind that we can bring up and experience the natural wonders of this beautiful planet of ours will be it's so much more important than sitting in a classroom and listening to a lecture. If you can get firsthand experience, we're trying to inspire young minds to become out and become the difference maker. We know that the next generations are going to be the ones that are able to change things. So it's extremely important. And what we do, I'm sorry for those of you that are listening in that might be seniors. We don't offer a seniors discount, but we offer a youth discount. Anybody under the age of 30 can get a 30% discount on the tour fare, and this allows grandparents, instead of buying them an iPad for their Christmas or something like that. Let's take them on a life experience instead and get them up to a beautiful place. So let's create those long-lasting memories together.
I actually read an article really recently about someone who had taken their young son on an adult, well, not an adults only trip, but there were no other kids on the trip. And one of the points that she made was it forced, for lack of better words, her son to interact like an adult. So he didn't have internet, he didn't have all of his toys. He had to have adult conversations and ask people questions and learn about things and really participate and pay attention to what was going on. And she said it was the absolute best experience for both of them, because he, not that he couldn't be a kid, he just didn't have all of the toys and tools of a kid. So
Yeah, it's I was extremely fortunate. I did my first trip to the Arctic when I was 2 years old, and I cherish those childhood memories, and it really does resonate with me even to this day, and hopefully for the rest of my life. It can be quite powerful. Can be quite powerful.
what's the minimum age for children?
There's no minimum age. We actually don't put that. We want to be inclusive, so there's no minimum age, and that's why if you're against youth of a certain age, then you can always call and ask us if there's going to be children on the trip. We try and put them all on one, so it's kind of like a child-friendly program.
Mhm.
But we don't have childcare services. So I haven't had kids yet for a reason. You're still going to have to look after the kids. It's your responsibility, but they're
Not
welcome.
MJ's responsibility.
Yeah, you're welcome to bring them along. It's just I'm not going to be looking after them.
What what would
Yeah.
you say is the best age for them that they get the most out of it?
For me, it was when I turned to double digits, 10, 11. Those were the most meaningful trips for me. I still enjoyed them. I still enjoyed them. I have fond memories of doing like pirate chases on the ship, pretending that pirates were taking over, and like other great memories. But I found that it became extremely meaningful for me when I started to reach 10, 11, 12 years old, just like the preteen ages. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So we also have a League of Adventurers. So this is a loyalty program. Once you travel with us, book a trip with us, you're part of that community, part of our family. You'll get newsletters, leagues. You'll hear from other travelers that were on your trip, all that good stuff, and you'll also get some benefits, including savings on future trips. I should mention that for 2021, we do still have our early booking incentive. So you can save 15% if you book before the 31st of October. And I know right now it's smart to be cautious. What we've done is introduced some flexible terms. We've lowered our deposit to just $500, which is non-refundable, but there's some flexibility. You can transfer your deposit to a future year if, for whatever reason, you're unable to travel, something happens in the family, or you're uncertain about things that are happening in the world. You have that flexibility where you can transfer to another program and not encounter any charges. It's penalty free to do a transfer. I'd like to mention that we are TICO certified, so we're bound to keep all of our money in trust funds and all of that good stuff. So you should be 100% safe feeling about the security of Adventure Canada. It's an investment. These trips are not cheap, but they're worth the investment, and your investment is safe. That's what I'm trying to message. Your investment is safe because we're a TICO operator, and I'm sure friends Sherry and the team can help you walk through the intricacies of all of those different policies. So that's it for me. I went 10 minutes longer than I promised I would, so I apologize for that. But I hope you found it informative and hopefully inspiring to travel. And you know what? I always close with, you don't have to go very far, but all I want you to do is get out there and explore. Exploring expands the mind. It can just be in your own backyard. I'm familiar with the Halifax area. You don't have to go very far to find beautiful connections with nature. So I just encourage you to go out there and explore and connect with this planet, because it is extremely meaningful.
Yeah, it was really interesting, MJ. And I mean, I've seen your presentation about the Northwest Passage before, and I still enjoyed seeing it a second time. I think there's so much to see and so much that we just don't know about our own country. I think it's a really great time for people to explore closer to home. And I realize, for those of you who are listening right now, we all realize that you're not ready to travel tomorrow. And it's not about booking something right now and leaving. In fact, Adventure Canada has suspended all tours for this year, correct? Yeah.
That's correct.
So
yeah.
Even with Adventure Canada, if you're thinking ahead, it's not something that you're thinking about right now. So we absolutely understand that that people are going to travel in Nova Scotia, and hopefully soon within the other provinces that border us. But we haven't been given that go ahead yet. But if you are thinking about something further on down the road, this is certainly an option. And it is an option that you do have to book in advance. It's not something that you can wait until 3 months beforehand to book, because it'll be sold out. There won't be room for you at that point. So you do have to be thinking ahead, which is why these flexible booking policies and reduced deposits are really important, so that you can think ahead into next year. So yeah. So I didn't see any other questions come in, but for those of you who are joining us live, if you have questions, do stick them in the comments. Stephanie, Marissa, and I will be monitoring comments. So if you know one of us and have a question, we will get back to you even after the show is done. And if we don't know the answer, we'll certainly be able to get in touch with MJ to get the proper answers for you. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who did come out and joined us this evening. If you are joining in on the replay, I should mention as well that you can still ask questions on the replay as well, and we'll monitor and get back to you with answers to those as well. So if you're watching a month from now or 2 months from now, that's good. We're happy to have you, and we'll answer your questions as they come in. Other than that, just a couple of last things to let you know. We'd love to hear what your favorite part of the presentation was, or if you learned something new. I hope you all learned something new, and even I learned something along the way as well. The little community, what's the name of the little community in Newfoundland that has no road access, that you have to go by ferry? Do you know?
France Way.
France Way. Yeah, so I know there are other communities in Newfoundland like that, but it's really interesting for them to be pointed out, and for you to be reminded that it's hard to see all of Newfoundland by car. You need a long time to do that. And it's really interesting that you can get into some different spots by boat than you can by car. We've got lots of comments coming in here now about a great presentation. So thanks so much for that, MJ. If you did enjoy tonight's session and you'd like to join in regularly, the show is going to be weekly. There is a whole list of topics coming up, and you can find the topics on any of our Facebook pages. So for me, it's Sherry Tucker Luxury Travel and Adventures. Marissa's is Marissa Dimmick TPI, and then Stephanie's is Boyne Around the World. So if you go to any of our Facebook pages, on the left-hand side, you'll see a section that says events. And in that events, we'll list all of the upcoming events that we have scheduled. So just so you have an idea of what's coming up, we have Iceland, the Yukon, Costa Rica, Western Canada, so Victoria, Vancouver, Alberta, the Rockies, and river cruising in Portugal. So there's all kinds of other topics coming up as well. That's just all I have scheduled at the moment. And I just wanted to say again, thank you to MJ. It's been a pleasure to learn about both the Northwest Passage and Circumnavigating Newfoundland. So I know we're all itching to get out traveling again. And I hope that some of the people that are watching will consider these trips for 2021 because they really are fantastic opportunities, and you don't have to go that far from home to join in on them, which is really nice. So thanks once again, everybody, for joining in this evening. And I hope that we will all see you on the Love the Way You Travel show next week. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.